The Chargers crushed it again with their second anime schedule release, and we now know the Chargers have a great chance to get off to a hot start in their season.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 7 seasons, but this is our 5th season as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and also follow the show for free wherever you get your podcast from. David, the Chargers released their schedule again, and I mean, they had the highest pressure on them amongst all of the team, and I think the lesson here is don't ever doubt them, because they came out with their second anime release, which I don't think anyone saw that coming. We were thinking, where do they go from there, right? So we're going to talk about all of our favorite parts, because there was a lot of Easter eggs and hidden gems in there, but I want to start off with the easiest and hardest parts of the season, and it seems like the Chargers' first 4 games might be the softest stretch that they have. Maybe they can get off to a good start, and then, unfortunately, probably the toughest stretch for them is the very end of the season. They got the Bills and the Chiefs week 16 and 18, so that's going to be really tough. We're also going to talk about the Chargers having 6 primetime games. Didn't think they'd be able to one-up the 5 they had last year, including a Peacock exclusive game. So we'll get to that. But it starts, David, with the Chargers having a realistic shot to get off to a hot start. Now we knew who the teams were. We didn't know what order they would be in. And I think last year it was similar, where we saw kind of a gauntlet at the end of the season, right? And there was also some really tough games at the beginning. But this year, it's the Dolphins in week 1, so that's going to be fun, right? Vic Fangio versus Brandon Staley. That's going to be, something to talk about, plus just the Tua versus Justin Herbert. We'll see if they can shut that down again, because that was one of the best games from 2022. And then you have the Titans, who are in a weird spot, right? Kind of rebuilding, kind of not. The Vikings, who are supposedly going to take a big step back this year after losing a ton of their expensive veterans. And then the Las Vegas Raiders. So, David, when I look at that, it seems to me the Chargers at least have a decent chance of getting off to a quick start.
Yeah, I think they definitely can. I think the Dolphins game is always interesting. I think Tua and Justin are going to be tied together forever, just like with Joe Burrow, just like with Jalen Hurts. I mean, that draft class is going to be like the Phillip Rivers and the Eli Manning and the Ben Roethlisberger class. They're always
and Jordan Love now, too, man.
Yeah.
He's on the schedule this year.
Yeah, I mean, but we haven't really seen what Jordan Love brings to the table yet. So, that'll be interesting. I mean, he's been having to kind of season a few years before he's been given the keys to the kingdom there in Green Bay. But, yeah, I think this is a very good opportunity for the Chargers. I think with the Titans, you don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for them. I think the Vikings are, like you said, having to try to figure out what type of team they're going to be. I think it's a good thing that you're catching them early. And then the Raiders, I think with the Raiders, they have a new quarterback with an offense that they probably have to still kind of figure out. And I'm glad that this is kind of the stretch that the Chargers get to start with.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at it, right, I mean, overall, they have the 14th ranked strength of schedule. So they're pretty much middle of the pack as far as that goes. And I think the tough teams, for the most part, are kind of spread out. But when you look at these 4 teams, like, who's the best of them? Probably the Dolphins, maybe the Vikings, probably between those 2 teams. I mean, I think this is also saying, we don't really buy into the Raiders offseason and them getting a ton better after last year, right, with Jimmy G. And we'll talk about the Jimmy G of it all with the Chargers and their anime release. But I think this is their best chance. I mean, the Chargers probably need to get off to a quick start this year if they want to kind of hang in the AFC West. When you have the Chiefs in the division, you also don't get them early on either, right? So you get to wait a little bit before you have that tough test. And I think these are all very beatable teams for the Chargers. Like, the Chargers could lose to any one of these teams as well, but, like, it feels like 3-1 in this stretch, right? 3-1 heading into a bye week as well. Like, I think that's very attainable. Like, that doesn't seem crazy to me at all.
No, it doesn't. And I'm also glad that we're catching the Dolphins early with Vic Fangio and them trying to have to figure out and kind of catch their groove. I think it's going to take some time before they get that figured out. And so I think the Chargers are really at an advantage, having that game starting off the season. But yes, I think it lines up very beautifully for the Chargers before the bye week. I don't know how I feel about the early bye week. I think it makes me feel a little bit better because later on in the season, you kind of have another mini bye week after a kind of a tough stretch there.
Thursday night football, you mean?
Yeah, right. After Thursday night football, they got like a 9-day hiatus before they have to go play the Bills. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like it to be more in the middle. What do you feel about the bye week being so early?
Man, I always think it's better when it's like week 10, right?
Yeah.
Like I always like it when it's, the closest to the middle of the season as possible, right? Especially when it's week 5, like it's hard to say what the injury situation is going to be like, right? Because I feel like that's a week that okay, well, hey, the Chargers will have a little bit of extra time to heal up and get right going down the backstretch of the season. And now they're going to have a true slog, right? They're going to go week 6 through week 18. No breaks, all gas, right? So I wish. I do think that the toughest 4 games of the season, David, is going to come at the end of the year for them. And I think that's good and bad in certain ways. But to me, the toughest 4 games, the last 4 weeks of the season, you have the Raiders, who are kind of whatever, right? We'll see what they turn into. I think there's a lot that they have to figure out, obviously, especially defensively. I don't know if they did enough there to be truly competitive in the AFC West. They have the longest odds to win the AFC West. But then you have the Bills, Justin Herbert versus Josh Allen. Then you get the Broncos, who are another team where we're still in kind of wait-and-see mode. What does it look like with Sean Payton, at the helm? And then you end it week 18 against the Chiefs. And I think the only thing you can hope there is like that game is still an important game, right? That game could mean something at the end of the year.
I think one of the people in the comments Robert, he brought up a really, really good point, is you have 7 AFC games that are going to end the season, which is crazy. That's definitely, you said, hey, the Chargers are going to have a say on how this AFC playoff picture works, and I completely agree with that. But man, having to play the Broncos in December in Denver, that is not going to be any fun at all. That obviously that doesn't set up well. And of course, you have the Bills just before that, so that's a really, really tough matchup. I think we just have to hope that this Week 18 game against the Chiefs is significant, that it means something, that, hey, maybe this could be for the division.
Yeah, or, the total opposite of that, right? If the Chargers aren't in the division sweepstakes at that point, which we have to, assume could be a possibility, right? They're not so good that you wouldn't think that they're, going to have to fight for it down the stretch of the season. The Chiefs may have already locked it up at that point, right? So if it is an important game for you, maybe they're not playing their starters the entire game. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Last year, we saw what happened in Week 18. It was a disaster for the Chargers. They went up against the Broncos, played their starters for 3 quarters, and it was just an absolute nightmare. People got hurt before the playoffs, and it was just gross. So, we'll see. But I think the other thing that's important to remember, too, is, we thought last year the last 4 games of the season were going to be the Chargers' toughest stretch, right? They had the Rams, who were the Super Bowl champions at the time. They had the Colts, who were like, okay, Jonathan Taylor's going to run all over the Chargers' defense, right? And they also had, the Broncos as well. But, I think for the Chargers this year, you don't really know. You have to wait and see kind of how these teams shake out, because the teams that won the most games last year might not be as good, right? Injuries happen in things like that as well, which is like the Dolphins, right? That's probably going to be a much tougher game because Tua Tagovailoa is probably going to be in it, right? Let's be honest. If it's later in the season, you don't know because he's been so in and out of the lineup. You hope you get to see them at full strength, right? But I'd rather take a win. So, it's going to be tough. And there's another tough stretch that you brought up later on in the season, too. Where you have the Detroit Lions, right? You get the Green Bay Packers, the Ravens, the Patriots. So there's a couple different stretches in this season where it's going to be really, really tough. But to me, having that to end your season, there's going to be a lot of stakes, and with all those AFC matchups, that's where all the tiebreakers and things come in. So it's going to be an incredibly important stretch, almost no matter what, for the Chargers, as long as they're in it and they're in contention to do something and make some noise in the playoffs. But we're bearing the lead here because the Chargers struck again with their social media team. Another anime release they had. I did not see the anime release coming. So many fun Easter eggs to get into. So we're going to break down our favorite parts of that, and there are a ton to get into right after this. But I need to tell you guys that right now, the best protein bar on the planet is Built Bar. And for me, the thing that separates them, the flavors. Chocolate peanut butter, cinnamon churro puff, and recently the peanut butter puff, which is like biting into a peanut butter cloud, a peanut butter pillow. I cannot recommend them even more. But the great thing about Built Bars, right? everyone, it sucks when you're on a diet, right? When you have to eat healthy all the time. And it's really hard to find things that taste great that also fit in your diet. And that's what you get with Built Bars. You're getting things that are, chocolate, peanut butter, brownie flavored that also only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and are packed with 17 grams of protein. So this is truly a unicorn. You can't find things like this in the wild. When you need to break up the monotony of your diet, get a Built Bar and change things up a little. And right now, you can even go get them at your local Walmart. You can go grab a 4-bar box, or you can go and just do what I do. Go buy them in bulk. Go to Sam's Club and get a 13-bar box. But since you listen to this show, you can also save some money online as well. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15. You'll get 15% off your next order. David, the Chargers had so much pressure on themselves to come through because last year, I think, undoubtedly, they had maybe the best, Chargers or schedule release of all time. It was easily their best schedule release of all time. But just if anyone ever releasing schedules, it was probably the best one that we've ever seen. And to me, David, they went with Anime Part 2. I loved it. I know it's the same thing. They didn't go with something new, but if it's not broke, don't fix it, because I had no problem with it. I thought it was great.
Hey, pressure makes diamonds, and I think they produced another beautiful diamond with this one. They have so much fun. They're able to sneak in so many different parts, so many things, so many little nuggets. They're just amazing. And I think that those personal touches for each team and how creative and how detailed that they got with everything is really what made it so much fun.
Yeah, and nothing says that more than the second slide that they have going up against the Raiders. They're cashing out at a casino because the first one is them basically gambling on Jimmy G, and that's what they came up with out of the slot machine. But they also could have got a Rodgers and could have got a Tom Brady as well. They ended up with a Jimmy Garoppolo. But in the second slide, they're cashing that voucher out, and that voucher has a QR code on it, right? So you could watch that and be like, yeah, that's funny, whatever. If you actually scan the QR code, it asks you which fan you are, if you're a Chargers fan or a Raider fan. If you pick the Raiders, it takes you to a Google search for how to get a job, David.
Man.
That is a deep cut. I couldn't believe they went there with the Raiders. That was definitely one of my favorite parts of it for sure.
Oh, my goodness. That was the crown jewel moment of the entire video for me. That is so creative. It's not even just funny. It's interactive, too. So you go to the QR code that actually works, and it takes you to how to get a job. Wow. That, phenomenal. I also liked the Cowboys part too. The Cowboys part was savage. The Cowboys post a news article about Dak Prescott basically losing the football game, and then it shows the bus with the content team on it running Dak Prescott over. That one was probably one of my favorite parts too.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys social media team literally and figuratively throwing Dak Prescott under the bus. That is crazy. It's 100% on me. 2 avoidable turnovers in the game. That must be harsh, right, to get that from your own media team. One of my favorite parts, the Chiefs-aholic bank robber.
Yes.
So that is kind of a story in this anime release. The first part shows the Chiefs-aholic mascot, right? And for those who don't know the story, it's almost too hard to believe, right? It's almost stranger than fiction. The Chiefs had a super fan called Chiefs-aholic, and he would dress up as a wolf or coyote or whatever that is for every game. But this man was actually robbing banks in the cities that the Chiefs were playing at to fund him being able to follow the Chiefs around the country and watch every game. So this man was literally going and robbing banks, and the Chargers put that to good use because you see the Chiefs-aholic mascot, right, kind of getting ready to rob a bank, and then
cutting off the ankle bracelet.
You actually, cutting off the ankle bracelet. In the second slide, you see him, running away from helicopters, and he's on a high-speed chase. And they definitely got their own division good, because the other funniest part to me, at the very end of it, the Broncos have one early on, and it's Russell Wilson and Patrick Starr, having a cook-off, which was great. The better part to me is Sean Payton as the Broncos mascot at the end of the year, busting up the Russell Wilson's personal office, right? That was one of the big things when Sean Payton took over. He said, hey, Russell Wilson isn't having his own office anymore. We're not doing that anymore. And in the Chargers schedule release video, they actually have Sean Payton in there busting everything down because he doesn't have it anymore.
I thought that was pretty funny, but I'll be honest, man. Them basically calling Russell Wilson a square was probably
SpongeBob
one of the funniest
SquarePants,
things.
right?
Yes, because let's be honest, man. Russell Wilson is one of those guys that it's just sometimes it's hard to feel like he's being completely himself
Sometimes.
all the time. Yeah, probably all the time, right? I'm trying to be generous and trying to be careful with my words here, but I mean, man, them making light of
cornball.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is for sure. He's like, it's just like, man, be a normal human being. You don't have to be on 11 at all
You don't
times.
have to be Mr. Incredible.
Man, it's just so it's more like Mr. Cringe, okay?
Yeah.
Like that's what I feel like, and them making fun of that. I mean, hey, if you're gonna roast anybody, your division has to be the one that you turn the heat up the highest on.
Yeah, last year was the Raiders. They were the ship in a bottle, and the sale said FTR, right? Family,
Yes.
trust, respect, their logo. And I mean, there was some great stuff from each of these years. I would bring up the other one, though. Last year, it reminded me of it because last year when they played the Browns with the whole Deshaun Watson situation, they said, this part of the video is redacted because of our lawyers. This year, kind of doubled down on that because when they have week 11 or when they have week 10 against the Lions, all they put on it was if you're a gambling addict, these are all the things that you can do for, right? Because the Lions had those players that were caught gambling or are now, suspended. Multiple, a good handful of Lions suspended for that.
Big
so
players,
I thought that was
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I thought that was awesome seeing that. Where it's
Just
like
savage.
funny, and it's just like a bunch of texts, and it's like, oh, if you're in these states, this is what you do. If you have a gambling problem, like they really pulled no punches in this one. But I think the big question here, David, is it better than last year's, right? Like last year, they set such a high bar, maybe the best ever. This year, obviously a little bit redundant, but they did new things. They fit maybe even more Easter eggs into this one than they did last year. I mean, if I'm putting you on the spot, are you going last year's or this year's?
I don't like that type of question. That's no fun. Man, I think the original was phenomenal, and it's really hard to top that because no one and I mean no one out there was doing anything like that, and they did something just so unique and so powerful that I think it's really hard to top that first one. I like what they did, and I think it worked again, but not, I think, to the nuclear popular level that the first one did. I think that's probably the one I'm going to go with.
I don't think you can go wrong either way. I mean, I think to be able to go anime again and to have people still love it and not be tired of it, I mean,
Yeah.
I thought was great. I mean, the QR code, the how to get a job, the Chiefsaholic bank
brilliant,
robber,
yeah.
like the Tennessee Titans, who are the Tennessee Teen Titans, and then also just starting it off with Mike McDaniel just ripping a huge vape cloud, like, because
I
he was
love it.
seen on the sideline doing that last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard to go wrong with either one, but like I just think that, when you're looking at last year's, they had the Colts quarterback carousel and they had
Yeah.
the Phillip Rivers horse on that. That was obviously great. They had the Mina Kimes graveyard of her dreams for the Seattle Seahawks. And this one, they also had the Buffalo Bills burning, a tribute to the 4 consecutive Super Bowls that they lost in a row. So,
That's
I mean, it
tough.
was pretty awesome, man. I mean, seeing all the players, like, all the wide receivers, we're all Naruto ninjas, right? And Justin Herbert has a giant cannon on his hand.
I love it.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much great stuff. Like, and I feel like it's one of those things where, like, every time you watch it, you'll pick it up a little bit more. But, like, last year, you also had Urban Meyer, right, in the bar as a Jaguar version of Urban Meyer just sitting there, like, knowing what happened with that, Like,
It doesn't get much better than that. I mean, that was just I mean, one of those things that you just don't expect anyone to do, and they made light of it, and they did it in such a just fantastically funny way.
Yeah, man, and like they somehow never go too far, but like skirt the line perfectly,
Yeah, they
right?
just-
And like
they're
just
right there.
Shout out to Megan, shout out to Jason Levine, shout out to all that team, man. I mean,
Yeah,
just
Friendly
another-
Cordova too with the anime. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
just knocked it out of the park
Oh,
again. I know
just
I know
crushed
this is your Super Bowl. I know this is one of the biggest events for you guys, and you absolutely crushed it once again.
Yeah, well, the Chargers have 2 Super Bowl wins if we count their last 2 schedule releases, because both of them, I mean, we probably even missed some stuff in this because there was just so much good stuff in there, and I mean, I'm gonna watch it 100 more times after we get off doing this. But we do have more to get into with the schedule because now we know the order the Chargers are going to play in, including how many primetime games they have. 6 primetime games for the Chargers coming up next year. Last year they had 5. I didn't think they'd be able to one-up it. So we're going to talk about the best of the Chargers primetime games coming up right after this. Primetime Justin Herbert is something that is always a delight to see. A little less so last year because of the slate, or just really the slaughterhouse of games that they had for the Chargers on those primetime games, right? But they did, finish off with that game against the Dolphins, which is pretty nice on primetime, right? They had a couple of good ones toward the end of the season. But David, we now know 6 primetime games for the Chargers this year. Week 6, Cowboys on Monday Night Football, which is going to be awesome. Bears Sunday Night Football, Week 8. Week 9, Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers versus Justin Herbert. Week 12, Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Week 15, Thursday Night Football with the Raiders. And then Buffalo, a Saturday game, Peacock-only game towards the end of the season at Week 16. So what did you think about all of those, David? Six primetime games that we're going to be dealing with this year.
I mean, insane. Crazy that the Chargers are one of 4 teams this season that have 6 prime time games on their schedule. I don't know if I was expecting that, but I think the NFL has caught wind and they understand that Justin Herbert is a superstar in this league and he needs to be featured and people need to see him because he's good for business. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me is not only do they have 6 primetime games, but two sets of those primetime games are back-to-back weeks. Week 8 versus the Bears on Sunday Night Football, Week 9 versus the Jets on Monday Night Football, and then again, Week 15 versus the Raiders on Thursday Night Football, and then Week 16, Saturday, against the Bills on Peacock, exclusively on Peacock. I mean, that is pretty crazy that they have 2 of those back-to-back.
Yeah, I mean, at least the Saturday game won't be a short week, but it does, kind of lessen the benefits of the Thursday night game, right? Going Thursday and then Saturday the next week. So not terrible there, but I would say, you do get an extra long bye week because Week 6, you have the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, so you can throw another game in there. And that's going to be so much fun to watch, David. I can't wait to see the revenge game and the game plan that Kellen Moore draws up for his former team when they meet up on primetime.
That's definitely going to be fun to watch. I mean, you can talk to them and ask them and say, oh, it's never going to mean anything to me. But no, that's all baloney. Mm-hmm. We know that this is personal. I mean, he worked there. He was the offensive coordinator there. And he had a lot of success there. You know that he's going to want to get extra creative, and you know that he's going to want to get that game. He's not going to just want to win it. He's going to want to win it convincingly. He's going to want to make a statement and say that this is the reason why you never should have let go of me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. There was obvious tension there. That's the only reason you get rid of an offensive coordinator that, that was that top successful. 4 in pretty much every category over his 4 seasons they're doing it. So, there was obviously tension between him and Mike McCarthy, and I think he definitely has that one, circled on his calendar for sure. I mean, you would have to think, one of the funniest things that Mike McCarthy said afterwards is Kellen, what he wanted to always do was run up the score. Well, I think that he's going to want to run up the score in that one, right? Mike McCarthy was saying, hey, sometimes you got to run the football and play defense. And Kellen Moore's like, I want to put a foot on a throat, right, and finish a game like that. And that's one of the things that excited us most.
Sign me up.
When he first came over, right? It's sign me up for that. Mike McCarthy, you're trying to get rid of that? I don't know, bro. I mean, but now we know he has, full authority of this offense, and we're going to see. Yeah. But there's another one I'm looking forward to a lot, David, and that is Justin Herbert versus the future and the past, I guess, of the Green Bay Packers. But him against Aaron Rodgers, just seeing him against one of the GOAT quarterbacks, even at this stage of his career, is going to be awesome. And that's going to be a heck of a football game. The Jets have a really good defense. They now have Aaron Rodgers. We'll know by, Week 9 whether or not that's a really, really good team or not. But that is a matchup. Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers. I wasn't sure we'd get to really see that, right? We do get that matchup of a future Hall of Famer versus maybe another future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like one of those, those old matchups where you got the old star that's been there for a long time that has got it done and
put him out to pasture,
right? And you got the up and coming superstar in Justin Herbert, and also it's nice that we get to have this because there was a very real possibility that this matchup could have never happened. So now that we get to see it, and it might be the first and the last time that we get to see it, and it's going to be really, really exciting, and hopefully it means something. Hopefully they're able to go out there and play their best, and they're both healthy and they have their full complement of weapons, so we can really see them light it up.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, it would be nice to see that. I'm also interested to see him versus Jordan Love because, I mean, it's easy to forget now, and we don't know what Jordan Love's going to be, and we'll know by the time these two teams face off when the Packers and the Chargers meet. But, there was a lot of discussion, at least in a certain part of the draft period or the pre-draft process, where a lot of Chargers fans wanted Jordan Love over Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert wasn't my favorite. I never went that far with Jordan Love. I didn't really see it like that. But that was a conversation. And I mean, you talked about that draft class going up there with the Bens and the Elis and Phillip Rivers. And like, now you're looking at Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts as a second-round pick, Jordan Love, and Tua. I mean, I really think that has a lot of potential as being, one of those things. One of the games, though, David, I think that's kind of flying under the radar here as far as a really tough game for the Chargers, and we'll see. I mean, because of the suspensions and everything else, and also a really weird draft, is the Lions. The Chargers don't play the Lions very often. I'm very excited for that, but also I think it's a game that could be kind of under the radar. I mean, the Lions could be pretty good. I'm pretty sure they're the favorites to win the NFC North this year.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup just because one thing that they're going to bring to the table is some physicality and some nastiness. Like
running the football,
they're going to want to turn it into a ballroom brawl. They want to duke it out. They want to impose their will. They're going to want to run the ball down your throat and impose their will on you. So the Chargers are going to have to match that physicality, and they're going to have to open things up. I mean, I think one of the things that they're going to be able to throw the football against the Lions, and so they should be able to create some offense. But that one's definitely going to be an interesting one. I don't know how that one's going to turn out. I also want to see what the Ravens game is going to be like. I think that's another game that I'm going to be paying attention to. Obviously, Lamar Jackson missing a lot of time last year, him getting the big contract.
Yeah.
What is he and his new offense and his new offensive coordinator going to look like? That one definitely has the potential for fireworks.
Man, it feels like the Ravens are one of those teams, right? Like that have the Chargers number a lot of times. And the Chargers kind of, remedied that a little bit in that playoff game the last time, but also the last time that these two teams faced off was one of Justin Herbert's worst games of his career. So, it'll be very interesting to see kind of him try to, evolve and kind of see where he's at in his maturation process. It's that team and also the Patriots, David.
Oh, of course. Always.
Please, God, no matter who the quarterback is, it hasn't ever mattered when the Chargers go up against the Patriots. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Mac Jones and Cam Newton that took him down the last time, right? One or the other. But, that is a game that's I don't care if it's not Tom Brady anymore. Please beat the Patriots this year. You have the Patriots. It's so hard for me not to be worried about that game because, Philip Rivers never beat Tom Brady. That has been a plague on my Chargers fandom my entire life. Go get that. Send Bill. If we're putting Aaron Rodgers out to pasture, put Bill Belichick out to pasture too, please.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, Tom Brady's not there any longer, and that's all well and good, but Bill Belichick still is there, and I definitely am, wanting to end that. Okay, I've had way too many bad memories of the Chargers losing and just disgustingly devastating fashion to the Patriots and in big playoff games and just crushing the hopes of really some of the best Charger teams that we've ever seen. And I don't care. I don't care if it's 15 years ago. I want to go out there and destroy the Patriots. They are the evil empire still, forever, and always.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm always just going to hate the Patriots no matter who's there. And, I mean, we'll see kind of if their offseason pays off. I don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback. Is it Mac Jones? Is it Bailey Zappi? They're going to try to bring Cam Newton back? Who knows? But that one will feel good no matter what. If the Patriots go into that game and they don't have a single win, it'll still feel like a great win for me, even if they're the worst team in the NFL. It's kind of like the Raiders, and to a certain extent, they are probably the team. I mean, the Cowboys, everyone has Cowboy friends that they, are annoying, right? And
especially me. I live in Texas, remember.
Of course. But Patriots fans, Boston fans are kind of the same way. So
definitely.
I think we all have friends, that we'd like to shut up and and also it's you don't want to lose to the watered down version of Bill Belichick and the Patriots, right? And,
no.
Wink Martindale, Bill Belichick, two of the defensive guys that have really, really made Justin Herbert struggle. The good news is now he should have a much better coordinator to go combat those dudes with, right? Because it didn't seem like those two guys had a lot of problems with Joe Lombardi's offense. Didn't seem like it when those teams squared off the last time.
Yeah, they had no answers.
I mean, it was really, really bad. But that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you to everyone who checked out the live show. We will be back with you guys on Monday, as always, and we'll be getting into a lot more, bringing on great guests to talk about the Chargers draft picks and the Chargers season, a lot going on, and regrading the Chargers 2022 draft class now that we've seen these guys for a year. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube and listen wherever you get your podcast from, or just follow us on all of our social media. You can find me on Twitter at DanTalkSports, David Drogemeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD, as well as the show's page at Locked On LAC. You can also find us at Locked On Chargers on Instagram and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But make sure you guys are back here on Monday, as always, for you guys, your only team, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.